leadership in what IDF officials dubbed Operation Summit of Fire. The international fallout has been harsh, and it still remains unclear which Hamas leaders were killed or injured. ILTV's Steve Leibovitz has the latest.
What we know is this. After months of secret preparation, at least 10 Israeli Air Force fighters dropped multiple munitions on a building in Doha, where top Hamas officials were gathered to discuss a U.S.-backed ceasefire proposal. The strike, conducted over 1,100 miles from Israel, was approved by Israel's security cabinet, but kept secret from the broader government. The operation was run from the Shin Bet's command center, with Prime Minister Netanyahu, Defense Minister Katz, and Israel's senior security chiefs present. The decision to strike had been made weeks ago. Hamas confirmed that 5 of its members were killed, including the son and aide of Khalil al-Hayya, but claims its top negotiators survived. Israeli officials say they believe several senior leaders were wounded or killed, and say it could take some time before the results are known. The gathering was believed to include all of the terror group's top leadership outside Gaza, including the leader of Hamas's Gaza units, Khalil al-Hayya, Zahir Jabrin, who heads Hamas in Judea and Samaria, Mohammed Darwish, the head of Hamas's Shura Council, and Khalid Mashal, the head of Hamas abroad. Despite claiming that Israel had failed in the operation, Hamas offered no immediate proof that its top leaders had survived. The terror group has been known in the past to only confirm the death of its leaders weeks or months after the fact. Operation Summit of Fire marks the first time Israel has struck within sovereign Qatari territory, and comes after threats from IDF Chief of Staff Samir, who warned last month that Hamas leaders abroad will be reached. For Israel, the operation is considered a closing of the circle against Hamas leaders who took part in planning the October 7th assault. The Shin Bet issued a statement of reminder of its vow at the start of the war to reach Hamas leaders everywhere.
And Prime Minister Netanyahu was quick to confirm the strike on Hamas leaders in Doha. He also defended the decision as crucial for the security of future generations in Israel, targeting the leaders of Hamas that perpetrated the worst attack on the Jewish people since the Holocaust. More from ILTV's Devo Klein.
Speaking at the long-delayed Independence Day celebration at the U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem, Netanyahu said the surgical precision Israeli airstrike targeting the, quote, savage Hamas leaders in Doha can pave the way to the immediate end of the war in Gaza. Netanyahu went on to say that Israel accepted the Trump proposal to end the war, beginning with the immediate release of all of the hostages. Netanyahu did not explain how targeting the Hamas ceasefire talks mediators could advance an agreement.
At noon today, I convened the heads of Israel's security organizations and authorized a surgical precision strike on the terrorist chiefs of Hamas. These are the same terrorist chiefs who planned, launched, and celebrated the horrific massacres of October 7th. They perpetrated the worst attack on the Jewish people since the Holocaust.
The promise to strike Hamas leaders abroad was kept, but it's still unclear to the Prime Minister at this moment just how much damage was done to the leadership.
And while Prime Minister Netanyahu praised and defended the strikes, U.S. President Donald Trump says that the Israeli strike in Doha was, quote-unquote, very unfortunate. After learning about the plan only shortly before, Trump reportedly directed envoy Steve Witkoff to warn Qatar that the Israeli attack was forthcoming. Qatari officials denied they were warned by Washington, and the call from Witkoff came only after the attack was underway. President Trump publicly denounced the Israeli strike, calling it unfortunate.
I'm not thrilled about the whole situation. It's not a good situation. But I will say this, we want the hostages back, but we are not thrilled about the way that went down today.
President Trump also issued this statement. This morning, the Trump administration was notified by the United States military that Israel was attacking Hamas, which, very unfortunately, was located in a section of Doha, the capital of Qatar. This was a decision made by Prime Minister Netanyahu. It was not a decision made by me. Unilaterally bombing inside Qatar, a sovereign nation and close ally of the United States that is working very hard and bravely taking risks with us to broker peace, does not advance Israel or America's goals. However, eliminating Hamas, who have profited off the misery of those living in Gaza, is a worthy goal. I immediately directed Special Envoy Steve Witkoff to inform the Qataris of the impending attack, which he did. However, unfortunately, too late to stop the attack. Trump spoke to both Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and the Emir of Qatar after the strikes. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt told reporters he assured the Qatari leader that the attack would not be repeated.
The president also spoke to the Emir and Prime Minister of Qatar and thanked them for their support and friendship to our country. He assured them that such a thing will not happen again on their soil.
And meanwhile, the IDF has issued the largest evacuation order yet for Gaza City as the military prepares for a full-scale invasion. Israel effectively ordered all of Gaza City to evacuate. The widespread evacuation order says all Palestinian civilians must leave the entire city immediately ahead of the military ground offensive against Hamas. Previous warnings issued by the IDF in recent days had only included specific buildings and the area surrounding them. Palestinian civilians were instructed to head to the Israeli designated humanitarian zone in the Strip South via the coastal road. The announcement also provided a phone number for Palestinians to report Hamas roadblocks or attempts by its members to prevent evacuation. The IDF says that as of now, some 150,000 residents have evacuated Gaza following recent directives, and the numbers could rise dramatically in the coming days. And joining us now with more on the Israeli strikes against Hamas leaders in Qatar and the aftermath is Ori Sachar, Director of Research at the Israel Defense and Securities Forum. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Lida. Good to be with you.
So we see Israel and Prime Minister Netanyahu immediately take credit for the strike in Doha. And then after initial reports that U.S. President Trump gave the green light for this operation, we see President Trump sort of distancing himself from the attack, saying it's unfortunate. However, not so unfortunate that Israel targeted Hamas. So what do you make of these comments? And how likely is it that Israel would strike in Doha without the U.S. go-ahead?
Well, it's definitely unprecedented, and Israel in that marked how it's willing to go and break the glass ceiling, the self-imposed glass ceiling, and carry out much more daring activities, if you will. Israel's audacity is coming into play here. And I think many Israelis felt that Qatar has been harboring terrorism. And since October 7 especially, these people, really the genocidal leaders of Hamas, have no right to keep walking among us. And every day these guys are alive is another ticking time bomb, and they have absolutely no right to continue to live. But always this game, and as you see on the screen, they celebrated right on the morning of October 7 as Israelis were butchered and kidnapped. But there was always the feeling that Qatar, the state, while harboring these mass murders, was also, had a seat at the table. That's why they were harboring them in the first place, right? So the hope was that Qatar will assist in carrying out these negotiations, and for a while it worked. But we see how Hamas persists with this refusal, and Qatar is not playing ball anymore, and Israel decided to embark on this action. And as you said, the White House tried to distance itself. That's the role of the political diplomatic jargon. Let's not be too worried about that. I think everybody's quietly happy about it today.
And now we have heard from Qatar that they are considering retaliation against Israel for the strikes. Is that likely, and what sort of retaliation could we be looking at?
I don't think it's likely. I think Qatar's retaliation is manifesting itself every single day by continuing to harbor mass murderers. Just 2 days ago, they murdered 6 more Jewish people in Jerusalem. And I think that every day they keep harboring them and giving them, like in the US, if you have sanctuary cities for criminals, so Qatar is a sanctuary state for terrorists. And it's very evident to see that Qatar has not ceased its willingness to keep hosting these mass murders. Every day, Qatar has been hosting them is a kind of retaliation. So I wouldn't jump too much ahead if I were them.
And when will we likely know if the operation was indeed successful? And if it wasn't, if Israel was unable to take out the Hamas leadership in the strike, was this a one-time opportunity, sort of an historic miss?
There are always more opportunities, but let's wait and see. I think Israel definitely has a very high chance of taking down at least some of the Hamas leaders. And, it sends a great message of deterrence. I hear leaders around the world, you mentioned the White House at first. The U.S. administration, in my view, is perfectly aligned with Israel's goals. But, you watch across Europe at the United Kingdom and France and other countries, and the way they are reacting to this activity is not baffling because it's not surprising, but it is very disappointing. To align with Qatar, to express total support for a country that is harboring terrorists. Can Israel harbor terrorists? Can the United Kingdom harbor terrorists? So there is a vast area of political consideration. There is a chessboard, and we all understand that. But this is not without you cannot overlook the kind of soft influence that Qatar has on these countries. We remember Qatargate in the European Parliament a few years ago when Qatar attempted to buy off European representatives earning their wage from taxpayer money in the European Union. We see how Qatar really is flooding the zone in Europe, in the United States, with billions of dollars in academia, popular culture, and all in order to get to this very moment where these leaders are demanded and requested to bow down, kiss the ring, if you will, and express support and solidarity for Qatar. I wish they reserved some of the harsh words that they expressed to Israel toward Qatar, because Qatar's activities in the past few years really show that it is a very sophisticated, very manipulative actor, but is also harboring terrorists, and this is absolutely unacceptable.
Absolutely. Ori Issachar, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
And before we move on, we're excited to announce episode 2 of ILTV's new special series with Israel Bonds, one-on-one with Lidar Greve-Lazi. Yes, I'm excited to announce episode 2 of my new show featuring an in-depth conversation with Nathaniel Buzolik, known as Nate Buzz, an accomplished actor and human rights activist, as he shares his spiritual journey from the sets of Hollywood to the streets of Jerusalem. Join us September 17th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. You can scan the QR code on your screen to RSVP. It's a conversation you won't want to miss. And back to the news. We're joined by ILTV's Shosh Bedrosian, who has the details on the families of the hostages who are expressing outrage and anger over the strikes that targeted senior Hamas leadership in Doha, Qatar, as they fear it could now jeopardize any chance of reaching a deal to get their loved ones' homes. It comes at the same time Israel is set to welcome home an Iraqi Hezbollah hostage in the coming days after 2.5 years in captivity. ILTV's Shosh Bedrosian joins us now with more. Shosh, let's start with the families of hostages in Gaza. Tell us how they're feeling right now.
Well, so Lidar, there's 2 different movements for the families of hostages in Gaza, with the families part of the Tikva Forum basically saying this attack on Hamas's leadership should have happened a long time ago. And they welcome the operation with open arms, as they say it strengthens the political echelon here in Israel, and that it's the only way for Israel to win the war and bring home all of the hostages. Well, meanwhile, the families part of the Hostages and Missing Families Forum say they have deep concerns and heavy anxiety with what took place, as they think this could lead to a lesser chance of a deal being reached. The cousin of Tal Haimi, whose body is being held by Hamas in Gaza still, reacts to the news of the strike, as the terror group said their leaders were meeting at the moment the strike took place to discuss the new proposal on the table that seeks the release of all 48 hostages. Here's what he had to say.
To be honest, I'm horrified at the idea that when we finally had an American-led deal that could have led to the release of all hostages, this is the action that took place. I have no regret in seeing these people punished. They are all a part of the people that massacred, that planned what happened on October 7th. However, the only way that my cousin Tal will be back for burial is by a negotiated deal, and this is what everybody needs to focus on at this point, no matter be it the mediators, be it Israel, and be it anyone else involved.
It's unclear if Israel's assassination attempts will impact the negotiations to reach a deal, but Israeli officials claim it will actually advance the negotiations, according to the Jerusalem Post. Gal Hirsch, Israel's point man with hostage negotiations, says Hamas's leadership in Doha has been a key obstacle to reaching an agreement. Meanwhile, President Trump announced overnight that Israeli-Russian hostage Elizabeth Tsurkov was released from captivity from the pro-Iranian Khatib Hezbollah terror group. In a post on Truth Social, the president said Tsurkov was safe and at the American embassy in Iraq after being tortured for many months. She was kidnapped in March of 2023 while conducting research in Iraq as a student at Princeton University. The terror group released a proof-of-life video more than a year ago of the 38-year-old. And Lidar Tsurkov was in captivity for about 2.5 years and is expected to be flown to Israel within the next coming days. She's also expected to undergo a very similar process as the hostages released from Hamas captivity underwent, according to Israeli media. And her family says they are just completely overjoyed that their daughter is finally coming home and that she will be treated in this special ward for her health and any type of medical conditions. It's unclear what concessions were actually made to bring her home. Lidar?
Thank you, Shosh, for the report.
Every day, Efrat gives women facing unplanned pregnancies the courage and support to choose life. From cribs and strollers to food, diapers, and daycare, Efrat ensures babies are not only born, but thrive in loving homes. For more than 40 years, nearly 90,000 women have chosen motherhood with Efrat by their side. Your gift today means one more woman has a real choice. One more baby has a future. Donate now.
Right on cue, international condemnations for Israel's strike against Hamas leaders in Qatar have come pouring in. What's interesting to note is that countries are condemning Israel for taking out terrorists rather than condemning Qatar for harboring the terrorists in the first place. The details in the following report. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres was quick to once again condemn Israel for striking Hamas terrorists in Doha, Qatar. He called the strikes a flagrant violation of the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Qatar.
Dear members of the media, good morning. We are just learning about the Israeli attacks in Qatar, a country that has been playing a very positive role to achieve a ceasefire and release of all hostages. I condemn this flagrant violation of the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Qatar. All parties must work towards achieving a permanent ceasefire, not destroying it.
Arab officials were quick to follow: Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Egypt, Turkey, and the United Arab Emirates. Officials took to social media to denounce the strikes. Qatar's foreign ministry spokesperson responded in a long social media post on X, saying Qatar strongly condemns what it called a cowardly Israeli attack and a criminal assault in violation of all international laws and norms. Even Israel's European allies, France, Spain, and the United Kingdom, condemned Israel's airstrikes and reiterated their calls for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. French President Emmanuel Macron, whose coalition collapsed after a no-confidence vote, called the strikes unacceptable. And while the condemnations came pouring in, no country dared ask the obvious question: why was Qatar harboring and financing Hamas terrorists in the first place?
Jerusalem, 1913. There's an epidemic. Up to 90% of children had trachoma. Thousands went blind. Yet one woman had a vision. It started with 2 nurses from America, and today it's 2 world-renowned medical centers, treating more than 1 million people a year, plus youth villages, saving hundreds of thousands since the Holocaust. This is the work of Hadassah, America's largest Jewish women's organization, and a life-changing force in Israel. We helped build Israel's health infrastructure, saved lives during every war and crisis. And now, Hadassah hospitals are pioneering personalized medicine with robotics, 3D printing, AI, and providing essential trauma care. For over 100 years, our vision has been clear: to help heal our world. This is Hadassah.
And the Defense and Security Equipment International event opened in London on Tuesday. And although there were no official representatives from Israel, Israeli firms and defense companies were featured as exhibitors. It's especially important at a time when many European countries are imposing silent bans or excluding Israeli defense firms. More with ILTV's Debo Klein.
The event kicked off on Tuesday with booths of the biggest defense tech companies on full display. Despite recent rocky relations between Israel and the partial arms embargo placed on Israel in September of last year, Israeli companies Elbit, Rafael, IAI, and Uvision all held booths at the convention. This in strong contrast to Israel's appearance at the 2025 Paris Air Show, where Israeli booths were blocked with black partitions before the start of the event. Israeli lawmakers at the time have called the move an outrageous and unprecedented decision. Despite Israeli companies being allowed participation at this year's UK defense show, Israeli representatives will not be making it to the event. The UK has barred Israeli officials from its biggest trade show over Israel's war against Hamas in Gaza. Israel's Ministry of Defense said that as a result of the trade fair ban, it would not run its national pavilion as it has done previously at the event.
Every expert would have told you that Israel's day had passed and Iran was the regnant power in the Middle East. And so far, tiny Israel has succeeded in neutralizing all of the Iranian air defenses, virtually all of them, the security leaders of Iran. One of the key ways we did it is through innovation. And that innovation, as you know, came from the Technion. I was involved intimately with the development and funding of Iron Dome, of David Sling, Arrow 2. None of that would have been possible without Technion. The university has played a pivotal role in saving thousands of lives. Technology is a type of Iron Dome for the society as itself. And it's not just a localized Iron Dome, it's a globalized Iron Dome. We have to invest. As we invest in R&D, we have to invest in the minds behind R&D. Israel has to make itself indispensable to the world. And the only way we're going to do this is through technology. It's Israeli technologies that are not only helping to forge the 21st century, but it also enhances the security of American families, American individuals from now into the future.
And now let's take a look at the weather. In a stunning and unprecedented move, Israel carried out a long-range airstrike in the heart of Doha, Qatar, targeting Hamas's political leadership in what IDF officials dubbed Operation Summit of Fire. The international fallout has been harsh, and it still remains unclear which Hamas leaders were killed or injured. ILTV's Steve Leibovitz has the latest.
What we know is this. After months of secret preparation, at least 10 Israeli Air Force fighters dropped multiple munitions on a building in Doha, where top Hamas officials were gathered to discuss a U.S.-backed ceasefire proposal. The strike, conducted over 1,100 miles from Israel, was approved by Israel's security cabinet, but kept secret from the broader government. The operation was run from the Shin Bet's command center, with Prime Minister Netanyahu, Defense Minister Katz, and Israel's senior security chiefs present. The decision to strike had been made weeks ago. Hamas confirmed that 5 of its members were killed, including the son and aide of Khalil al-Hayya, but claims its top negotiators survived. Israeli officials say they believe several senior leaders were wounded or killed and say it could take some time before the results are known. The gathering was believed to include all of the terror group's top leadership outside Gaza, including the leader of Hamas's Gaza units, Khalil al-Khaya, Zahir Jabrin, who heads Hamas in Judea and Samaria, Mohammed Darwish, the head of Hamas's Shura Council, and Khalid Mashal, the head of Hamas abroad. Despite claiming that Israel had failed in the operation, Hamas offered no immediate proof that its top leaders had survived. The terror group has been known in the past to only confirm the death of its leaders weeks or months after the fact. Operation Summit of Fire marks the first time Israel has struck within sovereign Qatari territory and comes after threats from IDF Chief of Staff Samir, who warned last month that Hamas leaders abroad will be reached. For Israel, the operation is considered a closing of the circle against Hamas leaders who took part in planning the October 7th assault. The Shin Bet issued a statement of reminder of its vow at the start of the war to reach Hamas leaders everywhere.
And Prime Minister Netanyahu was quick to confirm the strike on Hamas leaders in Doha. He also defended the decision as crucial for the security of future generations in Israel, targeting the leaders of Hamas that perpetrated the worst attack on the Jewish people since the Holocaust. More from ILTV's Devo Klein.
Speaking at the long-delayed Independence Day celebration at the U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem, Netanyahu said the surgical precision Israeli airstrike targeting the, quote, savage Hamas leaders in Doha can pave the way to the immediate end of the war in Gaza. Netanyahu went on to say that Israel accepted the Trump proposal to end the war, beginning with the immediate release of all of the hostages. Netanyahu did not explain how targeting the Hamas ceasefire talks mediators could advance an agreement.
At noon today, I convened the heads of Israel's security organizations and authorized a surgical precision strike